And that's what climate change is about. It is literally, not figuratively, a clear and present danger.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
The ability of CO2 to do the heavy work of creating a climate catastrophe is almost nil at this point.
The price of oil has been artificially elevated to the point of insanity.
That's not how you power a modern industrial system.
The ultimate goal of this renewable energy, plan is to reach the exact same point that we're at now.
You know who's tried that? Germany. 7 straight days of no wind for Germany. Their factories are shutting down.
They really do act like weather didn't happen prior to 1910.
Today is Friday.
That's right, Greta. It is Friday. It is the best day of the week, not just because the weekend is almost here, but because it is the day the Heartland Institute broadcasts the Climate Realism Show. My name is Jim Lakely. I'm the Vice President of the Heartland Institute. We are an organization that has been around for 40 years, and we are known as the leading global think tank pushing back on climate alarmism. Heartland and this show brings you the data, the science, the truth that counters the climate alarmist narrative you've been fed every day of your life. And there is nothing else quite like the Climate Realism Show streaming anywhere. So I hope you will bring friends to view this live stream every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and also like, share, and subscribe and leave your comments underneath the video. These all convince YouTube's very mysterious algorithm to smile upon this program, and it gets this show in front of even more people. And as a reminder, because big tech and the legacy media do not approve of the way that we cover climate and energy on this program, Heartland's YouTube channel has been demonetized. So if you want to support this program, and I surely hope you do, please visit heartland.org/TCRS. That's heartland.org/TCRS, which stands for the Climate Realism Show. And you can help make sure that this show happens every single week. Any support you can give is warmly welcome and greatly appreciated. And we also want to thank our streaming partners, junkscience.com, CFACT, Climate Depot, What's Up With That, and the CO2 Coalition. Welcome to everyone watching this stream on X via those channels. Today, we have with us Anthony Watts, Senior Fellow at the Heartland Institute and the publisher of the most influential climate website in the world, What's Up With That? We have Linnea Lueken. She is a research fellow for energy and environment policy at Heartland. And we are so happy to welcome back a friend and our very special guest, astrophysicist Willie Soon. He's one of the world's leading authorities on the sun's effect on the climate, and he's with the Center for Environmental Research and Earth Sciences, or CERES, and has spoken, I think, Willie, at least 10 of our 15 international conferences at climate change.
Yeah.
Yes. So welcome, Willie. Great to have you here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor.
Yes, we've got a lot of, we have a very lively chat here on both YouTube and Rumble, and your name comes up all the time. And so we're glad to satisfy those chatters.
I wonder why.
Yes, you are quite popular. In fact, I was telling you before we went on the air, you're able to, or your ability to land an interview with Tucker Carlson was kind of game changing. I keep seeing it. What was that? It was like at least 6 months ago, and that has been viewed millions of times on X. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, on X it's at least 6.4 million that I know. Yeah, it's a big number. Anyway, it's really a blessing, of course, so that we can spread the message of science, all the great work by Heartland Institute as well. You are my oldest friends. You've always been very, very kind to me and allowing me to speak in all your conferences. Yeah. Anyway, we are hanging out with good people, so it's never gonna go wrong. So.
Yes. Well, apparently the standard for having Willie Soon on your program is 6 million views. So we're going to hold you to that.
Yeah,
hopefully
come on, guys.
Video gets viewed 6 million times.
Subscribe and donate, whatever, man. Do all you can, please.
All right. Well, let's get to it. We got a lot to get into today. I mean, as I said, Willie's one of the world's leading experts on the sun's effect on climate, and he's going to be talking about that during this program. But let's start off as we always do with the crazy climate news of the week. Hit it, Andy. Yes, thank you very much, Bill Nye. So our first item today is the climate cult got snowed in. This is from SF Gate. 300 California conference attendees need snow rescue after running low on food. I love stories like this. We call this the Al Gore effect. So here we go. San Bernardino County firefighters had to rescue attendees of a climate action conference near Big Bear on March 13th after they became stranded due to heavy snowfall. The incident occurred at YMCA Camp Whittle in Fawnskin, the department said in a post on X. Some of the 300 attendees tried to reach buses waiting near cleared roads by trekking through approximately 2 feet of snow, but the buses became stuck almost 2 miles away from the camp near San Bernardino County Fire Station 96, the LA Daily News reported. San Bernardino County Fire Captain Ansley Muscarello described the immediate chaos to the Daily News. Quote, "Within a few minutes, we had a couple hundred people standing in a blizzard in front of our station, waiting to get on these buses that were getting stuck and didn't know the best way to get down. So firefighters had to use the station's snowcat to evacuate dozens of attendees who had remained at Camp Whittle before nightfall," the expo said, just as the facility had run out of food. Oh my gosh. Muscarello told the Daily News that people had left facing a long trek. It took them like an hour to walk down in a blizzard and 2 feet of snow, and these people really weren't prepared for anything of that nature. Now, Anthony, I mean, how could they not be prepared? Aren't these the same people that tell us that global warming causes all kinds of extreme weather, including blizzards? So, and on top of that, how can somebody in the 21st century with weather forecasts and radar literally in their hands in their smartphone at all times possibly get caught in a situation like this?
Well, no one ever said climate activists were smart. So let's just leave it at that. That's about really all I can say. But, if they just don't think things through. And that's the problem with a lot of climate alarmism. It's all faith-based, and there's not a lot of logic behind it. And so this is perfectly illustrated in this event where they go to a climate conference, get snowed in, and have to be rescued. They just didn't think it through because logic and so forth is not part of their mindset.
Don't forget, they have peer-reviewed science that says that the snow is going to go away. I mean, I checked that for sure. They have peer-reviewed science. I mean, come on. So yeah, they can't back it off from now. It's just nonsense from day zero, actually. Every time they say something, you have to really check. You have to look. You have to really be very careful, or else you'll be really smelly after that. These people are just up to no good. There's not a single thing that they say is of any use to us. Thank you.
I'm thinking maybe Heartland should sponsor a yearly conference in the snowiest place on earth called the David Viner Memorial Snow Conference, Climate End of Snow Conference. Yes. Right.
We have checked all of them. We publish papers showing them it's all nonsense. I mean, it's just nothing they say is good, especially on snow. I mean, specifically on snow. Just no such data to support them. In fact, the counter goes against them. And so they are, I don't know how they're going to dig themselves out of this big snowstorm. Who knows?
Yeah, with the description in the story, they had to get a snowcat up there to get these people out. Or I immediately thought of Scatman Crothers in the snowcat in The Shining when he had to go and rescue.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully nobody got. Hopefully nobody entered the hedge maze and the disaster was averted. So, all right, let's move on to our second item here: sleepy, dopey, or both. This comes from the aforementioned What's Up With That website, written by Charles Rotter. Climate change is ruining your nap. The stupidest study of the year. So far, it is early.
Yo!
Yes. So here we go.
Really come close. Yeah, I would say.
For sure. From our friend Charles Rotter. Here we go.
Communication. Holy cow. This is a very prestigious place. You would have to pay almost $5,000 to $10,000 to get this printed. Actually, I'm just telling you, that's how expensive this science nonsense has become.
All right.
You have to pay. Okay, remember, you are giving your intellectual property, but you have to pay to get this published because it's so-called open access, right? I mean, it's all our taxpayer-funded money. So, just
Nature Communications has become essentially the tabloid of climate science. Yeah. It really has.
Yeah. Well, let me read some from it. This is a very expensive joke, then, Willie, of a study.
Very expensive.
Somewhere, probably in a temperature-controlled office lit by taxpayer-funded fluorescent lights, a gang of climate hysterics decided it was time to sound the next false alarm. Global warming is coming for your dreams. That's right. If the planet warms by a couple of degrees, you won't just sweat a little more, you'll sleep less. And if you sleep less, according to these clowns, you might die. Cue the dramatic music and the UN PowerPoint. This deeply unserious study out of China, blessed, of course, by Nature Communications, a publication that has long since traded rigorous science for progressivism, makes the mind-numbing claim that rising temperatures are causing people to lose sleep. The culprit, not noisy neighbors, too much screen time, or China's brutal urban density. Nope. It's climate change, the all-purpose demon invoked every time someone stubs a toe or misplaces their AirPods. The study boasts about analyzing 23 million sleep records from over 214,000 people in China using Huawei smart devices. Because when it comes to objective medical data, nothing says trustworthy like consumer gadgets from a surveillance state. The researchers conclude with a straight face that a 10 degrees Celsius increase in average temperature leads to a 20.1% increase in sleep insufficiency and a devastating, hold on to your pillow, loss of 9.7 minutes of sleep per night. Deep sleep is reduced by 0.58 minutes. Oh, the humanity. So, I think that I titled this right. It's both sleepy and dopey, this study.
I want to point out that the study author is actually in the chat right now, or not the study author, the article author, our good friend Charles Rotter, who writes for What's Up With That and who is very funny.
Yeah, congratulations to Charles Rotter. Excellent.
Yeah,
writing.
everybody say hello to Charles.
Yes, hello, Charles.
Well, he wrote further. He wrote further
hours of sleep per year. Wow, by 2099. Holy cow! Where's the artist formerly known as Prince?
Yeah,
if
they're having trouble sleeping,
he's over in Finland right now. He's over there doing some super secret thing. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Well, if these people are having trouble sleeping, they can just play an Al Gore speech at a climate summit, and they'd go right out. No problems.
Holy cow.
All right, let's move on to our next item because I know we got a lot to do here with Willie. This is Just Stop Oil, Just Stops. This is from Reuters. UK climate protest group, and we have a lot of viewers and listeners in the UK. Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
UK climate protest group Just Stop Oil says it will stop direct action. British climate protest group Just Stop Oil, whose high-profile stunts have included throwing soup at a Van Gogh painting and disrupting sporting and theater events, said on Thursday that it would end its campaign of direct action. The group, which campaigns for Britain to end the extraction of oil and gas by 2030 and has become one of the country's best-known protest organizations over the last few years, said it would be, quote, hanging up the high vis at the end of April. In the last few months, its activists have poured liquid latex over a robot at a Tesla store, sprayed orange paint on a section of the U.S. Embassy building in London, and painted over the grave of British naturalist Charles Darwin at London's Westminster Abbey. Previous stunts have included spraying paint on Stonehenge. Nice job, guys. While two protesters were jailed for throwing tomato soup on Van Gogh's sunflower paintings in London's National Gallery. Many of his activists have been given long jail terms for their protests. Well done. And critics have derided their actions, saying the disruptions were pointless and just inconvenienced ordinary people. Yeah, that's all. Quote, so it's the end of soup on Van Goghs, cornstarch on Stonehenge, and slow marching in the streets, Just Stop Oil said in a statement. As corporations and billionaires corrupt political systems across the world, we need a different approach, it said, vowing that it would hold final protest outside of Parliament on April 26th. Now, guys, maybe start with you here, Willie. I mean, did they stop this tactic because it was becoming counterproductive? Some of my favorite videos on X and other places are fed up to hear Brits dragging these Just Stop Oil people off the road so they can get to their job. Or is it because that they have now won and it worked? I mean, didn't under this leftist UK government they have now, they're still all in for net zero, and didn't they just triple down on that?
No idea. All I know is that, especially many of the videos that I've seen that is very tragic, is all these ambulances and all this stuff that people have to bring their wives or the kids to hospital, and these people are blocking the road. That's ridiculous. I think I saw one from Portugal that did that. God bless them. I mean, these people really need to be in jail. I mean, they need to plant their own food in the jail and then feed themselves. I mean, we're not going to pay for that food. your life is just too easy, I guess, to create that kind of nonsense. I mean, stop it, It's embarrassing. Somehow shame is not that. Guilt is not these people just creating really delusion, serious delusion. This is really a mental disease. I mean, to be honest, it's a bit sad, and somehow I don't know how to help them, except that I think some very stern kind of things like that. Yeah, look at that. These are the one that is that kind of action that is going on.
Yeah. Well, part of
No
me,
comment from everyone. Silence. Yeah, it's true. You just numb. I mean, but I think we shouldn't let them keep doing this. I mean, these people, the first minute they do this, you put them in jail somehow.
Well, the happy news is that they have gotten long jail sentences over there in the UK, which I was surprised when that started happening, and that's got to have been a factor on why this is being done. But of course, now you have Keir Starmer in there, basically implementing the full climate agenda, so it's a good time for them to stop.
Yeah, the one that glue themselves and all those things. I mean, come on, why you want to take out the glue for them, the concrete? Let them stick to that place. Let them figure it out themselves. I'm not going to help them. Anyway, too much. Anyway, I think this is another one of those loser guys.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's get to our next item here on the crazy climate news of the week, and that's cherry blossom time. And this comes from our climate realism site. That's climaterealism.com, where we do the counterspin to the alarmist narrative in the mainstream media almost every single day, but every single week. So definitely bookmark climaterealism.com and check it out all the time. The headline here is, sorry, ABC News, early cherry blossom bloom is due to urban heat island and not climate change. ABC News ran a story this week reporting on the early bloom of the cherry blossom trees in Washington, D.C., attributing the early bloom to climate change. This is false. Although the cherry blossom bloom has arrived earlier in recent years, the cause is from the population increase in D.C., and the development has caused a localized heat biases from the urban heat island effect, UHI, causing fewer late season freezes and higher average nighttime temperatures in the area. The same is true for Tokyo. The reporter in ABC News item, quote, cherry blossoms blooming earlier due to climate change, says that, quote, Washington's iconic cherry blossoms are approaching peak bloom, and it's happening earlier due to human amplified climate change. This change, while not catastrophic, is disrupting travel to see the blooms, causing travelers who come to DC to see the bloom annually to have to plan for earlier vacations. Oh my goodness. It may be true that the cherry blossoms are reaching peak bloom days earlier in recent years than they have in past decades, but if so, population growth and the associated UHI effect are to blame, not a modest rise in global average temperatures, if you care about that. Tokyo's unbiased average annual temperature has declined since 1997. The impact of the UHI effect there has been to artificially boost the average temperature in Tokyo by 5.4 degrees Fahrenheit over the past century. That is far above the average rise measured for the island nation as a whole. This bias results in earlier spring-like conditions with higher nighttime lows, resulting in the earlier bloom. Now, Sterling Burnett, he's not here today, but he wrote this item for us on climaterealism.com.
I helped him write this so I can comment on it.
Yep, sure. Go ahead.
Well, it's just a perfect example of how cherry picking is the norm these days for climate science and also for the coverage by the media. In this case, they just completely ignore the idea of UHI, but they also completely ignore the fact that cities produce a lot of particulate matter. There's lots of soot, there's dust, there's, all kinds of small particulates that get stirred up in cities. And it is a well-known meteorological fact that's been documented in the Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society and other peer-reviewed journals that cities create more condensation nuclei. With more condensation nuclei in the air, you get more rain. It's the same principle as cloud seeding. So UHI combined with more particulates, you get more rain in the cities. Climate change has nothing to do with any of this, folks.
Right.
But, they just completely ignore that fact because they're on a mission.
Yeah. Let me put up on, before we get more comments here, let me put up on the screen. There we go. Yeah, this is a chart. This is from the story on climaterealism.com. This is a chart of the peak bloom date for cherry trees around Washington, D.C.'s tidal basin. And you can see that's 2024 was the last date it has, and that's over there on the right. It's high, but or I should say it's earlier, March 21st, but it's almost exactly the same place it was in 1920. And so the idea that it's unusual is crazy. And I might note, I doubt very much that the mainstream media cared a whole lot about when the cherry blossoms bloomed back in 2012, 2011, 2012, when it was on April 10th.
Right. This is why they are very afraid of data, right? You guys are such a realist that you show data. That's your problem. But anyway, I don't want to say too much because I can tell you that we have a very, very exciting manuscript that we just submitted, analyzing the cherry blossom data. You can imagine, and I don't know. I want to make sure my colleagues know that I didn't leak anything. But we got some really powerful work that is ongoing in peer review. So if we come out in next 6 months, you got to invite some of my friends on. So I shouldn't be talking all the time, but it's really beautiful piece of work. And it go back to the longest tradition, right, which is in Japan. Cherry blossom, for them, is the holy grail, you know. So from Kyoto, we can get data that go back 1,200 years, 800 AD. So this is very interesting. And exactly what is causing all those changes? You guess it's the sun, and then you show the recent time is mostly urban heat island effect, really. So it's a very interesting coincidence that the insight from Sterling Burnett coincide with what we actually come up with scientifically, I guess, in actual paper that we're writing. Yeah. Very nice.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. The urban heat island effect is people just don't talk about it enough, and that's why this show talks about it.
No. The argument is as local, but I guess even when we go to the next part, when I talk about sun climate, I just at least mention that. I mean, we prove it's actually on wider averages, so it's a very serious thing. It's real, and then everything they say is always not only exaggerated, it's completely the opposite direction. Yeah, they always say urban heat island is small. No, and they got rid of it. No, they haven't done any such thing.
It's very interesting because it's I don't know, you could plan a calendar around the types of articles that come out from the mainstream media with regards to climate change. We at Climate Realism, the website climaterealism.com, where we debunk a lot of this stuff as it comes up in the media. So if you guys see a major story floating around, there's a very good chance that we have already covered it with our own coverage of the actual data. And that's mostly what we do. They make crazy claims based on model projections. And then we go back and look at the actual measured observable data. And 9 times out of 10, it's not even close to what they're reporting. But like I said, you could plan like a liturgical calendar around around how the media reports on issues with climate change. So this time of year, it's cherry blossom in Washington, D.C. alarm season. A couple of weeks ago, it was the beginning, not the peak, but the beginning of the allergy alarm season for the climate news. In a couple of weeks, when spring starts further north of us in earnest, we'll get the major hits of all of that. And then this summer, in a couple of weeks here, probably we'll have hurricane alarmism season start. So it's you could plan a whole calendar around it.
Yeah, every year it comes around again. Same thing.
Yeah, we could make a predictive doom calendar, climate doom calendar every year in January, predicting what is going to be said by the media and at what times. And I think we would probably hit the mark more often than not with that thing.
I think 100%. It's interesting you use the term liturgical calendar, Linnea, since this is a climate cult we're talking about, and it's quite a religious movement for them. So that makes a lot of sense. We'll have to think about that. See if we have time to work on that. All right. Let's get to, I have a meme this week. This was, we'll just call it a meme, shared by Anthony Watts with me earlier this week. This comes from Copenhagen. I know we have viewers in Denmark. It says here that Copenhagen has taken a creative yet powerful step in raising awareness about the future impact of climate change. They've installed high benches around the city that represent the height of the water level expected in 2100 due to rising sea levels. These benches aren't just for sitting, they're a visual reminder of the urgent need for climate action. Placed in areas most vulnerable to flooding, they invite us all to reflect on the future of our planet and the importance of working together to protect it. Seems kind of silly to me, but at least you get a better view of what's across the river.
Well, for those who don't know, that region is actually the Fennoscandia ice sheets during the last glacial maximum. Actually, that place, the land is rising up now. I mean, just sea level is decreasing, it's going down. I mean, at that place, I have my good friend who is a chief geologist of Denmark, Jens Morten Hansen. I mean, he's the guy who actually traveled with the Queen of Denmark. I mean, he actually took those kind of measurements around that area. So, forget it, man. This is them. Danish people are also very much bought into this crap. It is high of stupidity.
That's right. Good joke there, Chris Shattuck in the chat. I got it. All right.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to our main topic. This might be the fastest we've gotten through the crazy climate news of the week.
Oh, you want to save time for me to perform, right? So
gotta save time for Willie. You get more time than most of our guests, though. You'll enjoy it. So here, we'll just set it up. You have a slideshow presentation, and I know we have a lot of questions
and you guys
and comments for you. So let's
15 minutes.
Let's roll.
Sorry. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for having me here. And then Jim asked me to provide some update on sun climate and what my thinking is. So again, this is just a brief slideshows. It's just to capture. If you need anything, you come to series-sign, CERES-sign.com. We have plenty of publication. We got news item. Of course, we're trying to build our own little YouTube channel. I mean, our focus obviously is very different caliber from the Heartland type. We are interested in science education, not quite in communication, because in communication, you cannot use technical science language, this and that, right? Okay, let's move to the next slide. The first main point about sun climate is it's very important. You can quote in unit of power, which is watt, or even in energy will be in joules. I mean, here, just look at the numbers. These numbers are important, by the way. Every time they say the sun cannot cause the earth to change, you just give them 4 times 10 to the 26. I think that's easy enough to remember, isn't it? And then as to how much the earth actually have is 2 times 10 to the 17. Even that 2 times 10 to the 17 is actually converted energy, because intrinsically the radiogenic heat, what you call the radioactive decay energy from the earth core, right? It's only another 10,000 times smaller, 2 times 10 to the 13 compared to 2 times 10 to the 17. Between all the energy, 99.999, it's all coming from the sun, right? So that's very serious. Don't let them fool you. It's just not possible for the sun to not do much. Let's go to the next slide. So, wait, go back to that one. This is actually to put in context. You can even put a number into the so-called power by CO2 molecules. Please read the number 10 to the power minus 22. I hope some of you know scientific notation, right? This number is not meant to scare you. It's just to provide you a relative context, right? What is what? I mean, you can have 10 to the 19 cubic particle CO2 per centimeter. I mean, it's just nothing. Even if you multiply by that, it's still a very small amount. So there's just no way the CO2 can do anything, actually, right? Next. So the most direct, you want to bear witness to the power of the sun? Take a look at what the sun is happening today, tomorrow. Actually, for the past 3 days, the sun, this one is actually on the left, is an image of the sun, more or less in X-ray already, 211 angstrom. So that one can be sensitive to actually temperature from the plasma of the sun that is on the order of 2 million degrees. The one on the right-hand side, by the way, is up to 20 million degrees. Okay, this is very serious, what you call corona heating that puzzled solar scientists for a very long time already. But regardless of that, I want you to focus on the black region, which is called corona hole. These are the region in which the magnetic field line, instead like a sunspot, it closed magnetic, is actually open. This field line come all the way towards the earth. That's where they channel this thing called a fast solar wind coming. And that thing is traveling at 1 to 2 million miles per hour, okay? The category 5 hurricane is actually 150 miles. This is 2 million miles per hour. So you can imagine this thing come real quick. Next, what happened? So that's a direct impact. Of course, there's a big hole, right? Big corona hole. We call it corona hole. It's very different from sunspot, by the way. So next, please. What the trigger effect? You get this beautiful aurora. By the way, this is for Charles Roder. I didn't know he was in Finland. That's what 2 nights ago that you get this phenomenon. Next. And then you can, for US, Duluth, Minnesota, you can see that too. I'm sure tonight also you will have some event somewhere. Next, please. Another one I think I want to show is this one is because to prove to you that the sun impact is not only in one place, right? This is in the southern hemisphere. I saw somebody from New Zealand was logging into this podcast as well. So it's from Dunedin, which is of course the South Island. This is the clear saying that you can't escape the sun because we are bathed inside the sun's sphere, basically. That's why it's called a heliosphere, right? Now let me just quickly run through the next slide, please. This is actually want to mention about how you study sun-climate connection. On this part, I want to point to one problem, which is, of course, the thermometer data, which Anthony Watt is the true expert on this topic. And this is the graph that you see 1 million times. In fact, if not 1 million, could be more than 100 million that you have seen this graph. They all look the same. It's go, cook, and then warm up in 1940, 50, and then boom, rise up. I want to remind you that this graph, we mentioned urban heat island effect. Yes, this is not a legitimate graph to study global warming, by the way, because this has nothing to do with anything related to the atmosphere. This has something to do with the urban heat island effect. We have already published several papers on this. Anthony himself has published quality of the thermometer data. So next slide, just to prove to you that we can do it. So you look at the orange kind of blur thing, there's a lot of curve in there. I can tell you it's from England Climatic Research Unit. It's from this group, these two scientists from England, Carlton and Wei, and then Chinese Meteorological Administration, Berkeley, Earth, NASA, Goddard Institute for Space Study, the NOAA. And then the black curve is actually what we can do. We already published that many years ago. What does this say? This actually say that, yeah, you can do that. I can do it. So it's called replication in science. But the only way we get this curve is what? You have to include the urban station that is contaminated by urban heat island. In fact, that's what I'm trying to tell you. So to study actually climate change in the what you call studying the different causal factor instead of just concrete and all this other stuff, you really need to remove this urban station. Okay? That you need to remove this, or else you cannot study this. Okay, that's basically, you can read all about it in come to series.science, ceres.science.com to get the details paper and explanation. If I may say, we published a layman summary for this for the Heritage Foundation, I think 2-3 months ago. So you can also find that report, which is coach in more access language, more easy to access language. So please read them or tell more people about this. Don't buy into the IPCC nonsense. So next, please. Yeah, that's just to show you that, yeah, we can do all of that, right? It's called replication. I think the next slide, I don't remember what is the next slide. Oh, therefore, I want to show this. Yes, I like this quote very much. It's from John Clauser, which is a friend of ours. He said that the IPCC is one of the worst sources of dangerous misinformation. It's not only misinformation, it's dangerous misinformation. And John Clauser, please next slide, just to show who he is. He's actually the Nobel Prize laureate in physics, right? I mean, he's the guy who actually, I would say, politically, I'm sure he's leaning on the left, a bit liberal and this and that. But he believes in science. Those whoever that think that science is valuable, I don't think you can escape the conclusion that IPCC is indeed very manipulative. It's not about science. It's always anti-science, and it's causing the world a lot of problem, I think. Even owe us an apology in the future if we actually would be able to bring them down to some justice, some sense of confession that they are wrong, things like that. But IPCC, I kind of give up on them. They're just going to keep doing what they're doing because they are mandated to do this, right? To manipulate the information, but they are definitely not a place to look for science. If you want science, you come to Heartland Institute, you go to Anthony Watt's page, or you come to series.science.com, right? Even Heritage Foundation has some good science in that sense. Next, please. Now I want to quickly jump over this graph that I think maybe not often see. Even the next click, this just to show you the range of the temperature. If you plot the monthly temperature data of the US average temperature, you will see that the average temperature is run very large amplitude, 45 degrees of a seasonal amplitude range. This is the whole US. And let's go next. I just want to summarize for you. If you put that in season, you do it every year. This one, you take the 2020 to 2024 data. It's 45 degrees Fahrenheit or 25 degrees Celsius. Let me show you then how much the actually sunlight is coming in on the seasonal sense. Next. You see it's of the order. This is the same contaminous US. It's of the order from from winter to summer. Of course, you can see time of the year, right, on the horizontal axis. Somewhere middle 180 will be in June, right? So from winter to summer is on the order of 2010 watt per meter square. I wonder if how many of you realize that if you take this and then you try to quantify this thing called a climate sensitivity, what do you think you will get? Have a look. Click next, please. Yeah, show the next slide. So to show you, if you put the number together, you overlap them, it implies of the order of 1 degree for doubling CO2. This is telling you that this is very powerful. Instead of model, from the data itself, you already can see that any climate model from IPCC that promotes 3 degree, 4 degree, or whatever, or even 2 degree is already over 100% or exaggerated, okay? It's just from number like this. If you want to live in the real world, I think we will have better stick to some of this number, okay? Next, please. Okay, if I go a little too fast, you guys can have the slide, obviously, right? This is just an example to show you. If I were to do that in terms of the temperature changes, and then you plot what your best estimate of the sun output, this is basically trying to revisit some of the old issue for those who are not familiar. Remember, I told you that if you just take the rural station, you will not be able to see this high warming trend at the tail end of it, right? And this shows you that indeed there are some plausible and possible connection between the sun and the climate in US, right? So I think I'm almost there, but I just show you that some update. These are results that I already published in 2021, so I don't want to embarrass myself giving you old result. But this is not old. This result is not going to change, by the way. There's just nothing wrong with this. So that's the point. And old result doesn't mean it's not good. It's actually very valid result. We published in about 3 papers actually explaining in details. You know, you can really have any crack at it to see what's wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with these things. Okay, we are working very hard, of course, to try to quantify now how much what we call the urban heat island effect and all these other factors that Anthony Watt would be able to tell you all about it, right? You know, the sighting effects and the time of day of observation. We're working very hard. Anthony, we got delayed, but we're going to produce that paper that we promised to work with you on this topic. So my goal in life is actually to produce what you call peer review publication, right? To really provide this so that we can be on equal stand with IPCC or any one of those guys, right? From NOAA, from NASA, so that they cannot, quote unquote, ignore us because we publish in the same place that they do, right? So this is why I think that working on science very seriously, very carefully, you know, of course, it's a lot of work than to just chit chat, right? I mean, produce much more important, what you call benchmark for them to really chase after us instead of us constantly chasing after their headline and all this stupid thing from the snow thing and to the sleeping, you know, caused by the global warming or even the cherry blossom thing. It's all basically big lies in that sense. All right, next. I think we just skip to this new paper that I was able to catch since you asked me to update some. I just provide 2 papers that just recently been published. Okay, let's show the first one. The first one, I think, is just published about a week ago, or 13 days, 2 weeks now. This is based on a cave in Vietnam, I think northwestern Vietnam, where they go inside, they got this speleothem, you know, this stalagmite, right, to try to cut them off because this stalagmite form layers, you know, because of the precipitation drip, so they actually have annual resolution. And this is very interesting. This shows indeed that there is strong evidence of how even the Asian monsoon, which is the rainfall season, right? Monsoon is basically the land-sea contrast, right, of the rain. And the way the sun works is actually very simple. It's always the same thing. Like the curve that you saw, the sun connecting with the Earth US temperature. Guess what? The simplest solution is that just a simple evaporation from the ground or from the ocean. I mean, I can show those kind of sample graph, but idea here is basically that this thing is also able to modulate regional climate mode, like monsoon system. Monsoon system is operating not on a global scale. It's more on the land-sea contrast. We have a North American monsoon, which is Mexico, you know, the southern east, southwest of US. And then you have this South Asian, which is India, you know, and Indo-China area, right? Monsoon intensity. I mean, the proof is basically they study the data record because they have annual resolution. So they were able to find a lot of this, what you call solar fingerprint, because the solar activity does changes in some very interesting way. Beside the 11 years famous sunspot cycle, it has that 180-year cycle and things like that. You can actually show, next slide please, just to put through. You can read all you want about this. Of course, I'll give you the slide and Heartland should put it up. That actually there are correspondent. The compound TT is the one that from this Stacklamite data sets, and then you have the beryllium-10, which is a measure of the solar activity. You will see some similarity in some of these periods, right, that they've been detected in the record. And this is actually not even the most recent period. This is during the glacial time. I think they cover like 30,000 years ago to some, I forget what year. Yeah, you can see roughly the time period. But anyway, let's go to the next graph. The next graph is telling the same story. Here is on an even finer meteorological scale, actually, talking about how you can find solar fingerprint in a lot of this, what you call paleo data, right? This one is from a carbon accumulation rate in peatland in actually northeast, I think, very near north of Korea. Northeast Asia, yeah, it's actually one of the place where you have this peat region where you drill the core and then you can actually date the age of the core and then each of the layers, and then you're actually trying to study what does it do. This is the kind of study that I think is useful, and the data is a lot, of course. This is just sample of 2 recent papers. I mean, over my lifetime, I'm quite sure that I have accumulated more than a few thousands of such work, right? I mean, some days I'm still hoping to put it all together to write this major super duper report. We already wrote a few to try to explain you that it is not one evidence like the IPCC insisting carbon causing global warming, carbon dioxide. We're going to show you that this is massive evidence all over the way. Because of course, not all places will show this. It's just the place happened to be conducive to be able to produce a signal. That's also a very key fact that we need to know, because there are meteorological factors. There are some local regional factors. There are some geological feature that's going to cause you from not seeing the signal. But not seeing the signal, not saying, doesn't mean that the actual physics, actual physical connection doesn't exist. Whereas we find so many, like I said, thousands and thousands of this kind of empirical evidence. This is part of the problem with basic science, obviously, because we have a lot of problem to try to fully explain everything. But as far as I'm concerned, after by the way, this is my 35th years of doing this kind of work as a professional. I'm still a professional, even though I'm out of Harvard University, but I've been out since 2022, but I'm very happy now because I'm free from the slavery system. Thank God. But in any case, I think that's enough for now. Yeah, this paper you can read in my slide. They also show, of course, all this solar fingerprint. They show, by the way, actually show this. I want to show, because there's another very interesting time scale that is not often talked about. Because the sun is not only changing on 11 years or even hundreds of years. There's a very well-known period that is actually 1,000 years. They known it as an eddy solar oscillation, named after a solar astronomer named. The next slide, it has 1,000 years. I think this one detected 1,000 year cycles in quite a few of these data sets, right? So that shows you the 200 years is very well-known, similar to the 180. And then the 88 is well-known. It's called Gleiberg cycle. The 201 is called the De Vries cycle, and then the 1,001 is called the Eddy cycle. So these are all well known in terms of solar literature, and of course, you can really do all you want. Science is always never the final conclusion. There's always open ended, but we have learned so much now. I would say that we are fairly confident that this is something that IPCC will continue to ignore. And we will continue to put it out because it is the truth and the whole truth. And if anybody can point out that we're wrong, we're more than happy to correct ourselves. This is the kind of work that I think, because we're not here to just hit and run, right? Just like many of these bad people and even bad scientists are doing that. Because apparently these people are not so serious about science. So I think by now you'll be fine for me to stop. And then I guess I'm more than happy to answer any question at all. Thank you.
All right.
Well,
So Linnea
I
and
think
Anthony, go
that
ahead.
the graph, the most important thing that you presented is the graph that shows the TSI versus the rural temperature data set.
Yeah, maybe Andy can figure it out.
That is that's gold as far as I'm concerned. Sunspot cycles, every time we analyze those on WhatsApp with
No,
that,
I agree with you.
they don't really come together with a solid answer. We get all kinds of, all across the board answers about solar cycles, but the TSI versus the temperature, that is important. That right there is, now someone might say, well, correlation is not causation, but I don't know what your correlation number is on this, but it looked pretty good to me just by my Mark 6 eyeball right here. So I think this is the thing that really needs to be pushed about solar, to the exclusion of some of these other things like solar cycles, because solar cycles and temperature don't always match up. Yes, there's differences in TSI, but this is really the thing that gives.
No, thank you for your
power.
comment, Anthony. It's valid. These are the things that I can say that, of course, they cross our mind. We studied this very carefully. In fact, we're not only showing it for US, right? We can show it for many other regions. We can show for the Arctic. Even Arctic is very hard to get rid of some of this non-climatic factor because it's not all clean, even though you see that there's no population in Arctic region.
Right.
There's another project that we are diving into, but it's the hard part is, of course, gaining those what you call the meta state history station data for European station. I'm happy to report to Anthony, we got 800 of those station history, so kind of in good shape to try to study some of those for the European record, right? Well, I like to touch Australia, but those guys are all cleaning up and nobody know where the meta station history is. That sort of problem. Yeah. Well, we'll keep trying because this is the way actually to get closer to the truth. I totally agree with your comment. Is completely valid because, for example, on the 11-year cycle, I can tell you it's a bit like this. The Earth is a very strange kind of filter. Okay, it does filter things out. For the fast transient, it's very hard to detect them. But if you actually are able to, let's say, record things in the troposphere or stratosphere, the 11-year signal is there. Actually, the sunspot type is there. It's just that when you come down near to the surface, things sort of disappear. So it turned into, instead of high pass filter, people who know this electronic thing, it become a low pass filter. So the effect of those longer term, like the multi-decadal thing, shows up much more clearly. In fact, in rainfall record, you can kind of see something. You're right. I don't want to get into this. I know Willie Session-Bach, some of your good people, absolutely top-notch kind of thinker, who actually kind of very skeptical, and I am also skeptical. Same way, I think the same like you. But I think that it's hard to escape the conclusion when you think it from the big picture. This is why I start with the picture of the energetic constraint, because you have to remember there's no other sources of energy around. So the rest is like a little puzzle searching for all these details. And then plus that weather and climate operates on such a different spatial and time scale that you got to be much more careful about that. Yes, the most important thing that you can also show actually a lot of this solar activity, kind of solar irradiance type, can affect a lot of this mode, this different what you call large scale operation mode. It's hard to show for ENSO, but you can show for the AMO, for example, right? You can show that. I published paper on that explaining the relationship with the Arctic temperature and the hydrology, things like that. So yes, a lot more work to be done.
I have a question, Andy, if you can bring that graph back up in the split screen. So we all know why the temperature series doesn't go prior to 1980, because there just wasn't anything until the Weather Bureau formed, the Cooperative Observer Network, and that spread around the world. But what about the TSI from 1800 to 1880? How did that get measured? Or is that some kind of an estimate or a proxy?
It is an expert proxy, yes. I can tell you that we recently, I just hope that maybe we invite my colleague come out, Ronan Connolly. He's also a pretty good guy. And we just produced a paper that resolved this satellite part. That I can tell you that they keep, in fact, they always have paper that only say that the distant satellite going down. We show that not so. This is a huge breakthrough because the whole solar physics community are stuck. They refuse to work on the problem properly. We work on it properly. Therefore, we come up with the best, what you call long-lasting results. that I hope that some of them will start looking into this, or else the problem going to persist for another 50 years. I'm very sorry. But we publish now to say this. And the pain is that I have to find $5,000 to pay for these damn papers, okay? It's a very painful thing that these people are taking the money.
Don't you get millions from big oil? That should be chump change.
This is one of my smaller house. One of my very smaller house that, just for me to drink beer. Anyway, well, let's not get taught this, but there's a lot to do. I'm just saying that step by step, science, you have to tackle also the problem, not all at the same time with taking a chunk. That I felt very proud. This publication was probably around December of 2024 of Astrophysical Journal. I mean, it's an expensive place to publish, but it's a good place because it's a place where everybody serious people on solar physics ought to pay attention to this. So I'm very proud. Come to series.sign, CERES-sign.com. You will find the paper under publication by Willie Soon et al. In Astrophysical Journal. I think that paper is kind of not yet been discussed. We haven't been also going around. We're busy working on the cherry blossom. We are working on so many other problems. So we are very, very, hard at work, put it this way. And I hope more people will make aware of this paper, of course, of all our works. And then, in fact, it's not just one work, it's every work. I mean, if you like, we even work on COVID-19, right? Things like that. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Willie. I put a link to a PDF version.
Yeah, please let them have the
of your presentation in the chat. And I've actually, as you were finishing up there, amended the description of this video. It's the first time I've ever done that in the middle of a stream. And so I think there's a hyperlink that's working. You can just click on it to where you can get it from the Heartland website. So anybody in the chat, if you want to test out my attempt to give it to you live, and let us know how it went, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But we do have a lot of questions for you, Willie. So I'm just going to hand this over to Linnea. Take it away.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much to everybody who has submitted questions. There are a lot of them to get through. So I am going to read out the questions for our audio only listeners so that they can get the benefit of understanding what the full context is that we're responding to here. So we are going to start with this one that is simple, and I think Dr. Soon, you'll be able to respond to it very easily. And that's from Marcia, who says, "What causes variations in TSI?"
Okay, it's solar magnetism. The sun is actually a fluid that is plasma, which mean the atom would not be able to remain as an atom, so it's a neutral, so there's an electron being stripped. For example, the corona picture that I showed, the iron atom is being stripped about 23. There are 56 electrons outside the iron. It's been stripped, so they become charged. So it's magnetism. So when you have a flow, so immediately you have electricity and magnetism. It's the magnetism, because the magnetism can produce dark region and bright region. So you see the net, it's basically the battle within the dark and the bright region, right? And then the dark region is operating on 100,000 kilometers or 10,000 kilometers scale. And then the small one goes down as small as we can measure them down to meters. I'm sorry if you know numbers. Therefore, it's very difficult to do the bright one. But in the net, is the bright region. When the sun is more active, the bright region win over the dark region. So you get net bright. Okay, when you have more active, the sun is brighter. Okay. And then, of course, the associated phenomenon will be the flare, the corona mass ejection, so on and so forth, that produce you actually this famous aurora, right? So I think there's a lot more details, but basically the simple answer is solar magnetism. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, so this is one that this is for Dr. Soon, but I think Anthony would probably be able to weigh in on this as well. But Ted Clark asks, is the modern warm period ending about now, followed by another little ice age corresponding to the grand solar minimum of 2030?
What grand solar minimum of 2030? It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, these are because of literature that people want to rush. Yeah. Prediction of future is always very dangerous, and they already put a label, and it's not right. I believe that it comes from the work of Zakova. But by the way, I myself have made some of that forecast, but I'm much more cautious than that. Because first of all, there's a very famous meteorologist by the name of Andrei Monin from Russia. He's a Russian academician, obviously. he said to believe in sun climate connection is big trouble, because you not only have to know about the climate, you have to know what the sun is doing, right? You have to predict the sun in the future. And that's and then not only that, you have to figure out the connection has to work. So it's a long story. And I would say that we just have to keep learning. We don't have enough adequate knowledge, by the way. The problem is the missing link of what is weather, what is climate. I think that become a very difficult problem that I think it will take a while to figure this out. So at best we can do is actually to keep updating our knowledge. And for now, there's no major understanding that can make me convinced that this is actually the true answer. So a lot of people are tending to rush to conclusion. So I don't totally agree with them. I think you have to approach much more carefully. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that related to that would be a question from one of our very frequent viewers, Albert. I don't think I've seen him miss a show, so we really appreciate you, Albert. And he says, do you know about Zarkova's work, which you do, and do you agree with that work?
Short answer is no, and no about agreeing with her. Absolutely not. And then about knowing her work, I got very, very bored after repeated. I mean, these are the I don't know anybody know about her or not. She's very aggressive. These people who she would even attack you if you don't cite her paper in your own paper where you don't depend on her. So put it this way, that is not a very nice thing to do. I can tell you my bad experience. Might as well just say it. She has actually even written to a journal editor one time to tell me to retract my paper or have to cite her paper. That's a very nice try. I say no, because I didn't depend on any of your work. I mean,
Yeah.
If I would have to depend on her, I mean, that's a bit aggressive. I mean, these are the people. I want to let it be known, but I don't want to answer to all of this nonsense. It's a bit bad. I don't behave like that to anybody. You don't do work like that. And plus that, always, there's a lot of huge misconceptions. She apparently is trying to say that the sun and the earth is like a billiard ball. I mean, he said that she actually is trying to say that the earth can move closer to the sun so easily because of planets. I mean, she doesn't do any of this orbital planetary calculation, which I did with some of my colleague by the name of Gustavo Cianzo from Argentina. We are the one that produced the first solution, the correct solution to all of that for the last 10,000 years. There are other problems, much harder problem, but we solved that problem. And I think everybody should use our data. Because remember, the sun and earth is not a billiard ball. They co-evolve to gravitational potential. They just move together. There's no possibility for the sun suddenly have extra input to the sun, because the sun and earth, the sun actually move in the inertial plane. The sun actually is not stable. It's not in the center place, actually moving around. It's called center of mass. But when the sun move this way, the earth move this way. When the sun move that way, we move this way. The relative distance doesn't get adjusted so easily. We can prove beyond doubt, actually. You just have to take all this current and film. If we have that kind of problem, we would be lost long time ago. No satellite would be put up there. Believe me. So there's a lot of issue, but I'm just saying technically this is not a very interesting area to pursue. So therefore, I no longer want to study that kind of issue. Of course, she's very popular. She will have thousands and thousands and thousands of views, but I also have 6 million views, I can tell you, on Tucker Carlson show. Thank you. So science is important. Please follow the science, not any human being, or somebody's claim who actually absolutely cannot be verified.
All right, so I'm going to give Dr. Soon a break here for a second and pitch a question to Anthony, which comes from our friend here, Jeff Boy RD, who says, with climate change, which I think no one denies, as the climate is constantly changing, what do the alarmists say is the normal temperature we're trying to achieve, and how is it determined?
Well, I think it was determined much in the same way that the most important number from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was determined, 42. It was just pulled out of thin air. Seriously, I mean, what is the Goldilocks temperature, right? I mean, I would say, where you're living in the Goldilocks zone now, we are thriving as humans. We have so much productivity, agricultural productivity, and industrial productivity that did not happen and got suppressed when temperatures were colder. So honestly, I don't know what the exact perfect temperature of the Earth is or is supposed to be, and neither do they. But I think we're doing pretty good right now with the temperature that we have that is slightly elevated over what it was 100 years ago. And every time we go back in history and look at this, like in the Roman warm period, the medieval warm period, and so forth and so on, elevated temperatures promote humanity, colder temperatures suppress humanity. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, don't forget, you can make more wine and beer.
That's true.
That's very, very true. It's very necessary.
Absolutely.
The pleasure of living, right?
Here's a question from our friend Chris, who has to get up very early because I believe he's in New Zealand or South Africa to watch this show. So he says, are we affected much by the stuff we fly through in the galaxy? Would any effects only occur over very long time scales? Is this a dumb question?
No, it's not a dumb question. It's a bit like how Valentina Zakova misunderstand how the Earth motion through the solar system, right? Within the solar system. This one, it's a very long answer. I'm going to give a very short answer. Look up spiral density wave. We don't fly through the galaxy. It's really a very interesting phenomenon of masses through the what you call the galactic rotation. There's no reason for a galaxy to rotate by itself, isn't it? It should just sit still. Why would it rotate, right? So that kind of thing is angular momentum, obviously. So there's a lot of factors involved. But the problem in that kind of galaxy dynamics is related to things that we don't see, which is the dark matter. That's another physics problem. But long ago, we kind of roughly understand that you got to look through this. The motion is complicated. It's not a billiard ball. That's another thing. Please, it's not a Newton mechanic billiard ball. It's much more complicated. It's group behavior, things like that. So look out spiral density wave if we want to understand our motion through the galaxy. So it's a very interesting thing. Wikipedia answer is adequate, I would say. So study that, and that's a very good hint.
Man, I had a gym moment. Darn it. Okay, so question, and Jim had a gym moment.
I had a gym moment, so you had a gym moment.
Right. Kite Man Music asks, does Venus have a runaway greenhouse atmosphere due to a lot of carbon dioxide?
You can flip it around. It has a lot of carbon dioxide because it's hot. I don't know. The problem is that the evolution of the planets requires some serious understanding. I'll put it at that.
Yeah,
it's really You can use Mars as an example too, because Mars has very high concentration of carbon dioxide too, right? But Mars is cold. Why? It's because of the distance from the sun. This is the fake notion that has been introduced by people like Jim Hansen and a bunch of this. I don't know. They are not very good scientists, put it this way. It's very confusing when you hear from them with director title, with professor title, with so many of this title and gold medal and Nobel prizes, this and that. It's so confusing when you hear from all these kind of people. It just gets even more confusing if you cannot think for yourself. So I would encourage everybody to think for yourself. I can say that please come to series.science.com. I think we have some minimal standard. I mean, we may not know everything, but we know something. And we are much more careful than spilling answer to things that cannot be answered so easily. So let's be careful. That's all.
All right, this is a question from Kevin Burke, who says, I do solar photography, so I'm interested in the sun. When looking for a TSI record, have you seen evidence of mega Carrington events every 1,000 years or so?
Mega Carrington. Too many things at the same time. Of course, H alpha is good because H alpha is a very nice filter. That is in the visible wavelength, I would say, because that filter has been invented long ago, about 6,000 some angstrom. Because that's where you can see the chromospheric layer, and then you can see a lot of this motion where the spots beginning to merge together to create these things called solar flare. By the way, today I was working on the longest solar flare record that we have from instrument with my colleague Ronan Connolly and my Mexico colleagues Victor Velasco. We clearly wanted to understand that, but the only way to get those information, I would say, would be through what you call observation of sun-like stars. The European Space Agency project called Kepler has already died, of course, a satellite, but we have already recorded quite a lot of stars. I would say close to a few 100,000 stars of sun-like star. And then we have a statistical record of over 5 years of record. And in a time that is enough to catch solar flare event within minutes. So that's a lot of data, and the Japanese group has already produced a lot of interesting evidence to say that there are mega flares, no doubt about it. They're bigger than what we have observed on the sun. I would say 10,000 times even bigger, the 10 to the 35 ergs kind of thing. So it's bigger. We are able to see, which means the sun can have much bigger flaring event actually. So things like that. And 1,000-year kind of cycle, the best confirmed thing is basically through a lot of this, what you call cosmogenic isotope, right? Carbon-14 data and beryllium-10, and then it's possible through titanium-44, through meteorites, and then you can also do it through another useful one that I find it useful is actually nitrate in ice core. We've been able to show that it can give you information on the 200-year cycle, the 88-year cycle, things like that. And the 1,001, no one is able to get such a long record yet. So to get 1,000 years, you need 10,000 years of data, actually, right? At least to see something like that. And
yeah,
it's evidence is there. It's evidence is there, I would say, yeah. For the Eddy cycle, the 1,000-year one, like it just show in one of that work, right? That just produced, yeah. They're able to see 1,000-year cycle. Those are quite long data, so they can say something like that. It's quite good.
Yeah, like our commenter John Z says, no one knew what the Carrington event was until we had wires. How is anybody going to track that?
And Carrington one was interesting. September 1st, 1859. It was accidental. It's about 9-10 o'clock in the morning. If he were to not regularly collecting sunspot data, he would not see it. But the fun part about Richard Carrington is that, of course, he owned a brewery for beers. he went out. He had a small little telescope. He went and do this. And then he just happened to see this bright thing. And then along somewhere in Scotland, there's somebody by the name of Richard Hodgson. He also saw that simultaneously. So it's good. But in history, there's also one time, I think in 1715 or 1716, by a guy, that guy do a cloth coloring thing. He also saw white light flares, actually. That was another very well-recorded, very interesting eyewitness kind of thing. Yes, detecting solar flare is tough, I tell you. Of course, the 1859 is famous because we have already by then telegraph, we have really direct documentation of that impact on the ground. No doubt about it. So it's a very beautiful thing. In fact, we are working on that today, trying to talk about solar flare of all times, and I can report to you, we can confirm that the May 2024 flare event that we have, pretty big, dude. That's a big event. That one just happened. That's why I want to start with the corona hole to show you. But of course, corona had nothing to do with flare. But the sun is a magnetized body that have, I don't know, you saw the Hindu god that have multiple hands. I mean, these are the ones that have many, many more hands. Does so many more things. And you got to think in terms of wavelengths and energetics. Of course, the sun is just had that free energy, basically. Well, maybe not all gravity. You have nuclear from the inside, and then the magnetism, all the motion, and because the temperature is high, so it's very energetic kind of bodies. Yeah, a lot more to do. No one knows all about the sun. Believe me, it's very hard. I can put a plug. Someday you guys should watch a movie by me because I'm very proud. This is what I want to say. Let me say. For a long time, I've been studying sunspot. I haven't published a paper until like 2021. So for 30 years, I didn't publish. I published that paper because I think my paper is important. Then, ever since then, I've been chasing one thing called, what can I find? The first sunspot drawing from colonial America. I'm a naturalized citizen of America. And it took a long time. And many people tell me, the best sunspot scholar tell me that, no, it cannot be found. It's already disappeared. About 2022, I got lucky, hit the jackpot. I found it. All right, so we're going to tell that story. Maybe somebody should make a movie because it's quite interesting. What this picture is about. Come on, for America's sake, we got to know this. Because after a long loss, many scholars say it's lost, it's not possible. Don't even look, right? Do I look like somebody's going to give up? No, sir. I was so happy. In fact, the first thing I tell was my two sons, boys, come on. Those guys named Benjamin and Franklin, okay? Come on, boys. Let's check this. Put it on your name. It was fun. That one is good. I'm trying to encourage a filmmaker like Martin Durkin, my friend that did Gorilla Sign. Please, I want to put a plug for them too. These are all good friends who did Climate, the movies. We all work very hard because we don't believe in the nonsense that these people are creating. I mean, this is actually beyond ourselves already. It's about the future generation and this like that. How can you live in a world with anti-science all the time, right? So it's just not good. We have too many anti-science elements. Never mind about free market, which is Heartland think tank, which I agree with. Free market ideas. It's a very good thing. But people can argue. Of course, communists would not like that. But too bad for communists. Right? We're not in a communist state. Yeah. Anyway, I say science, free science first. Science needs to be free. Science is not free at all. It's completely captured by all these technological elites and all these different tools that they're trying to confuse you with. If I may put another plug, last week we just published a paper using Grok 3 beta, writing the paper all by himself. I didn't do anything. We just keep talking to Grok 3 and make him write the paper. All we did was to improve on the kind of weaknesses in Grok 3 system right now, at least in beta state. That I think this is significant, just to prove a point that, remember, this system now are fairly intelligent. This system have at least an IQ of 400. You all know about IQ system, right? 100 is the median. 15 is one standard deviation. So you add another 15. So no one can even reach IQ of 200, put it this way. So people who talk about IQ of 200 is ridiculous. It's not possible, right? This kind of system has IQ a minimum of 400 or more. So very smart. No one can beat them in chess. No one can beat them in any of this normal game now. No one can read 10,000 papers. Not in 100 years, days, weeks, quickly. Okay? 100,000. So it can synthesize things so quick. So we produce this thing in a proper way, taking advantage of how this smart system can do. They can know and connect 10,000 papers at the same time, right? And then put it together to give you a synthesis, a summary, right? So, and you have to know how to use this system. This system is pretty much corrupted, right? So my good friend Jonathan Kohler, his name should be mentioned because he was the driver behind this, because he's a geek. He's a computer scientist. He's a Harvard physics graduate. He's also a clarinetist. So we're constantly having fun, by the way. So that paper, I think people should think about it and then look into this, because this also, for me, it proved a very important point. This open system, actually, if you allow it to be free, if you don't capture it using all this, what they call alignment, then, it's actually able to give you a very fair and open discussion, an open summary. And I think it really gonna put IPCC. IPCC is completely not necessary now. I mean, they are gone. I mean, I don't know. I still wish that they can be disabandoned, but I think they're not going to go away. They're going to find way to keep going, keep telling the lies. But I think the sooner we can forget about IPCC, the better we will be. I mean, hopefully we can have that power to resist IPCC, because they're trying to capture you by saying that everybody is saying IPCC is true. But IPCC is not even true. I mean, it's not even wrong, put it this way.
Well, the good news is that Trump, by withdrawing from the IPCC, has pretty much nullified it, at least for the United States of America. So, the next time they publish something, I think it will be pretty roundly ignored, except by the highly alarmist media, such as, The Guardian or, The Washington Post.
Yeah, but my point is also that, yes, I totally appreciate that. I love that very much. I'm a Trump guy myself. But, we don't want things to be temporary. We want it to be long-lasting. Science ought to be free, free, free. That's it. Because society should demand this. You don't want your kid to be taught by Michael Mann. Put it this way. I am not confident at all that too many people will benefit from taking a class from him. I will openly say that. This is why my kid would never go to UPenn. No way. Even if you give them food, tuition, everything. Hell no. Run away from people like that. Because it's just not useful. You're going to ruin yourself in the process. No matter how much the prestige is.
All right, I've got this question from someone who is new to this channel, who says, Why do we not challenge the science of carbon dioxide to include its full effect in the atmosphere, to include under clouds? Whoever wants to take that. I'm not quite sure what's being asked here.
Correct.
I don't either. I have no idea what that question means.
Right. No, it's actually people have attempted very detailed calculation, right? The most insane and very, very detailed calculation is the one by Professor William Harper and his colleague William van Wijngaarden from I think he's from York University in Canada, and they have looked into this question, but tackling that together with cloud, it's a very difficult, I would say, unresolved problem. But they actually make already first few attempts. There are some interesting results coming out from them, but I think that area is also not so interesting, not so fruitful. I would rather study how the irradiance can modulate the cloud field, from evaporation, separate from what the people call about the Schwarzmark effect from cosmic ray. I'm less enthusiastic about that factor, but that's another open discussion that everybody should discuss. Yeah, my view is on Schwarzmark is that, he worked very, very hard, but I think that one has to understand cloud is a very strange beast. In my humble opinion, cloud, by the way, I already found evidence. By the way, I need empirical evidence because we don't have enough brain. Our theory is not powerful enough to handle cloud in a very comprehensive way. Cloud may be known as what you call a forcing in the short term, like minutes to days and all that, because every time you have a cloud, the lower, anything below that will be cool, right? Especially low cloud, it will reflect sunlight, therefore it's cool the lower region. But we found out from a set of data, basically from studying isotope data, carbon-13 or carbon-18 stable isotope in 3 rings that is annually resolved. In places, basically it's in high Scandinavia area, Norway and those places where it's under the slope, where it's not limited by water and all that. It's only limited, not by temperature, it's limited by sunshine. So this isotope is telling you something about sunshine. When you have sunshine information, what does that mean? It tells you about the transparency of the atmosphere. So you have a way to diagnose the cloud. When you study those records, it actually tells you that on those multi-decadal time scale, you have to figure out something else, because cloud is not at all a forcing. It turned into a feedback in a sense. So that's why the concept of forcing and feedback is very artificial. This is what I mean by we don't understand the connection between meteorology and climate, right? That's the problem. There's no separation of the skill. Sorry that you're getting into a lot of details, but someday, I mean, you guys can all drink beer with me together and then I'll talk much more fluently. But it's a lot easier. There's a lot of problem, but it's very, very interesting to resolve this. I'm pushing really hard on this topic also myself. And but we need more empirical data to start even, because we don't know where to begin on this problem on the cloud thing. So the cloud, I would say, the Schwarzmark time is good, but it's also not very, not going to go too far, because you're ultimately still defeated by the problem of what cloud is and what does it do. And plus, I remember, you cannot just focus on the low cloud. You have to do ice cloud. You do all this. Richard Lindzen from MIT have a hypothesis that's very famous, right? It's called the iris hypothesis, because through this ice cloud, the high ice cloud, I think I would say near the tropopause region, able to modulate the IR emission long wave outside. So it's actually one way to also study that. And I think that mechanism ought to be studied a lot more. It's just that we don't have good enough of data, because all this cloud is manifesting in minutes and hours. If you don't have good enough time resolution, you can't do anything. You can always keep speculating, scratching your head and talking nonsense all day long. So I think, that probably is enough for one podcast, but it is that very, very interesting. I truly believe that if people give me a lot of money, I can start my institute, my whole university that can be Jordan Peterson, that we will focus on this, because I actually know a lot of talent. So I'm trying to recruit. My group now has a minimal amount of things that we have at Series That Sign, please. Please, Heartland. But we are trying our best to put out nothing but science. You cut the blood here, you will see blood out the word with the letter SCINCE. Yeah.
Well, Unfortunately, we're kind of running up on our time here, and we have a bunch more questions, but we're not going to be able to get to all of them. But I'm just going to put this one up because it's funny, and it's from a friend of ours who has attended some of our conferences, and he also knows Dr. Soon. And he says, "Dear Willie, have you practiced your Frank Sinatra songs lately?"
Fly me to the moon. Yeah, I did that one. It was good. But it was only playing with my daughter. Yeah, my daughter Emily was very young at that time. It was just fun. Yeah, very fun.
Yeah, well, I can attest from personal experience that Willie Soon actually does become more coherent after about at least 2 beers.
Yeah, minimum.
It's true. He's not lying. Anyone else have another comment before we wrap?
Yeah, Jim, I'd like to point out after listening to all this and, seeing the relationship between the sun and the earth and thinking about it deeply, and this is something that you can tell your liberal friends on social media, that everything here on earth, whether it's the temperature, our minerals, our bodies, whatever it is all nuclear powered by the sun. That'll get them.
Yeah. It's all converted energy.
Oh.
Everything we see here, the ocean, the movement of the air, the movement of the current, everything. There's no energy, intrinsic energy from the earth, the radiogenic. It's been measured through geoneutrino measurements, okay? It's 10,000 times smaller than the actually converted energy from the sun. Period.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
science is all measurement, buddy.
Yes. Well, that will do it for today's show. Gosh, Willie, that was a whole lot of fun, and I know we're going to have you back on again sometime for sure. Maybe we'll do it late at night when we can have an adult beverage instead of the middle of the day. Who knows?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Thanks, Willie Soon, for joining us. He's at the Center for Environmental Research and Earth Sciences. That's series -science.com. Definitely check out that website. They also take donations, and so his work can be supported. Always visit climaterealism.com, climateataglance.com. What's up with that? And always visit heartland.org, where you can subscribe to our weekly or climate change weekly newsletter and also donate to help support this program. Thank you very much, Anthony Watts. Thank you, Linnea Lueken, and thank you, Willie Soon, for being on the show today. And thanks you, everybody in the audience. We wouldn't be here without you. And we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye.